campers, I'm Leicester. No, I am not a city, that's my name. If you're enjoying the music that you're hearing, that's good, because I was the one that made it. Check out my music on SoundCloud, if you feel like it. Shameless plug over. Without further delay, I'm here at gunpoint to introduce this week's Benny Shakes Things Up. Without further ado, here's Benny.
Except not here's Benny. Hello. Hi, I'm Kate. Hello, welcome to Kate Shake Things Up. Benny is here, but he's quiet today. We've got him quiet. We've gagged him. He can't talk. Oh, it's exciting. I'll explain for why. Welcome to Benny Shakes Things Up, or Kate Shakes Things Up. Today, the reason it's me today is because we have it is International Women's History Month, so yay, and also it's Disability Awareness Month. Disability Awareness Month, more than Disability Awareness Month, it's Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. There we go. This is why we need Benny. Hello everyone. So I'm going to start very quickly with my guests. I have got Emma from Adult CP Hub, and also Sam from Inclusive It. Welcome to you both.
Hi.
I'm giving you a round of applause because I think that's polite. Welcome. Hello. How are you both?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. So I'm going to dive right in with a question. So the first question we normally ask is, what is your disability? But we frame it slightly differently here. We shake it up a little bit and we call it, what is your superpower? I'm going to start by asking Emma first.
Well, it won't surprise you really, given the fact that it's CP Awareness Month, to know that my superpower is cerebral palsy.
That is exactly the answer. And Sam.
My superpower is also cerebral palsy, and I have a type called spastic diplegia, and it affects me across the body as well. So, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask you about the work that you're doing. So again, I'm going to start with Emma. Nice broad question. What do you do?
What do I do? Well, I am by profession a speech and language therapist. But about 3 years ago, I was getting really frustrated by the fact that there wasn't a lot of information about cerebral palsy for adults, and also the fact that there were very little services for adults with cerebral palsy. And so together with a colleague of mine who's a physiotherapist, we set up Adult Cerebral Palsy Hub. So my day job now is to run the Adult Cerebral Palsy Hub.
Cool. And Sam?
So I am a Greek fitness instructor and a personal trainer, and I specialise in those with disabilities or health conditions in doing like rehab personal training, basically.
Yeah. Cool. So both of you are sort of, yes, thank you, Variety D, power for all the women in the world. Yes, powerful women, like that. So my question to both of you as a start is, you both sort of, from what I can understand from what Emma has just said and what I know about you, Sam, is you both sort of came across gaps in the market, if you can call it a market, gaps in where in terms of information for adults with CP, and in terms of fitness for people with disabilities. What made you decide that it was your job to fill that gap?
So I think all the way through my life, I've always met people that have said to me that the understanding of cerebral palsy as a lifelong condition, as one that affects adults, and a condition where people weren't very interested in. And so anybody that I ever met sort of thought that it was a bit ridiculous. And they would always say to me, somebody's going to do something about this someday. And I guess I got to the point thinking I had nothing to lose, really. Maybe I am that somebody that will start to find out why there wasn't any services for adults and what we needed to understand. But mostly it was because I was really frustrated, and I'm not someone that's used to sitting around and doing nothing. So after some quite major surgery, which meant that I had given up my job and I was spending a lot of time sitting on my bottom, I decided to start asking questions, and it kind of grew from there. I really believe that anybody can start a movement, anyone can do things to make a change, but they just have to believe in themselves, and they have to decide that that's what they want to do. And if you're passionate enough about it, then you will get people that will join your cause.
Great. Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, it really started when I was younger. So I always wanted to dance, but no dance school around me would really take me on. And when I did have a trial with one at 8, they put me with 4-year-olds, and I just felt so like different, and it's like I didn't feel comfortable and never went back. And then when I in my mid-20s, I discovered Zumba and realised that the ethos of Zumba is that it's for anyone, regardless if you're able to follow the instructor or not. You do what you can, as long as you're moving. That is the main thing. I found a class, I went to it, loved it. I could adapt it how I wanted to adapt it. And then through an injury, I cracked a bone in my shoulder joint, and through the rehab, I saw the power that the gym had in not just my shoulder, but my actual cerebral palsy. And from that, I got talking to the personal trainer that I was working with. He said that I should do it for a job because I could actually really encourage and motivate other disabled people to actually keep fit, get moving. So I actually Googled what I asked him what I needed to actually what qualifications I needed. He told me. I went home, I Googled it, and Instructability popped up, and they train disabled people to work in the leisure industry. I applied, got accepted, and I qualified nearly 8 years ago. So yeah, and it was went from there, basically.
Fantastic. Have you always been a very physical child, Sam? Because you said, were you always a physical child? I mean, obviously you were put in with 4-year-olds in one class, which sounds horrible. But were you always like, no, I'm just going to go out and do that kind of thing?
Yeah, I got an older brother, and my older brother is very, very sporty, and it's like I always wanted to like copy him. So he was a swimmer, and once he started swimming, I wanted to obviously start swimming. So obviously I joined the swimming club that he went to, and I started swimming about 5 years old. So 5 or 6, and then even at school, though I was always like segregated, I always did PE separate. I always wanted to join in and actually be active. And then when I went to uni, I actually stopped being active because obviously uni life, you're young, you want to enjoy it, I go out partying. And then in my mid-20s, I sort of started to get stiff, started to get pain, and I went to my GP, mentioned it, and she said that I should start doing something like yoga or Pilates. And the gym that I joined didn't do that, but they did body balance, so I started doing that, and it actually made a really big difference in me. And then once I found Zumba, I started doing more dance-based classes, and that's how it all started for me, basically.
That's great. Really Emma, you talk about you were I'm sorry if I've got this wrong. Are you still a speech and language therapist, or are you not currently?
That's a really good question. So I am still a speech and language therapist because I did the training and I worked in it for a very long time. So I guess I still am a speech and language therapist. Okay. And I still use those skills in my job. It won't surprise you to know that speech and language therapists are good at talking and talking to people. So I guess the skills that I learned both working within the NHS and the health service and working with people and learning to communicate, I guess I use those skills. The other thing that I trained in a good few years ago now was as a coach, as a life coach. So I guess that I use both the skills as a speech and language therapist and as a life coach in the work that I do now. But I don't think those things ever leave you. It was quite difficult to make that change because I think your job becomes your identity, doesn't it? So I really wanted to, in fact, I really wanted to be a physio when I was younger. I don't really understand why, but I didn't think that I'd be able to do it. So I found speech and language therapy, which was really interesting. And it was always something that I wanted to do. So to have to give that up, which I had to do because my mobility was really a problem, and I was having real problems with fatigue and tiredness, and eventually my hips failed. It was a really difficult time for me. So as much as I love doing the job and the work that I do now, I also know that it gave me a new passion. It gave me a new lease of life, if you like, and it's enabled me to meet lots and lots of different people. So I have got lots of the skills that I need to do the job, but I'm also learning all the time. I always say that I spend most of my time outside my comfort zone. I know very little about social media or about technology or about lobbying politicians or being on TV, but it's given me the chance to do all of those things that maybe I'd never done before. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
That does answer my question. I was going to go, because I was sort of going, yes, so tell me about your work as a speech and language therapist. And then I thought, I know you do a lot of work. Your job is adult CP Hub now, so it's kind of a bit. I was just going, is that a slim roll? That's a very good answer. Very much better than I'm actually responding to that now. So as it's International Women's History Month, how do you feel that being a woman has made a difference to the kind of work you're doing and how you approach your work, or do you feel it's kind of universal?
For me, I don't know whether I think what I want to do is to show particularly the women in my life and my daughter and her friends that if you want to do something, that you should try it and you should have a go, and that that you can have a good life and aspire to a good profession, and that if things are not right, then you have the opportunities to try and to change that. I suppose I've got two sons too, so I guess that I'm trying to role model that to them too. But I think it's as important, if not more, to do that for my daughter, because unfortunately today I still think it's difficult for women to demonstrate their skills sometimes. And I also think that women and men are not the same. We're different, but we're equally as important. And I would also say that of the disabled community, I would say that there's lots of parallels. We often talk at the charity about the need for role models and people actually doing it and seeing it. And I think that's the same for women. We need to see lots of women in higher places, in powerful places, so that the younger generation have places to aspire to. And equally, I think that women bring difference to the workplace or to life. We just see things differently to men, but that's not better or worse. It's just different. And I know Sam and I have often had this conversation that, you know, in the workplace, somebody who's disabled too, they bring something different and special. And you asked us about our superpowers. I don't think it's just about the labels that we have, but it's also about the attributes that we bring. So we often talk on some of the chatting groups that we have about the fact that, you know, if you're somebody who's lived with a disability, you're a great problem solver. And if you're somebody that's living with a disability, then you're used to having to do things differently. And that when things go wrong, you're less fazed by it because you're used to having to work around things. And so I think in the same way as it's important to have role models and to understand the values and attributes that women bring, we also need to do that in terms of the disabled community too. So I think the two things that work in parallel, really.
Sam, what about you? Do you find...
I actually really good answer from Emma, actually. And,
I will swap you round at one point and actually have you
that's
speak
quite- yeah, but like for me, especially being in the fitness industry, obviously it is a very female-dominated industry, so there's quite a lot of especially in group exercise, there's quite a lot of female instructors. But then you look at the PT side, there's a lot of male PTs out there, and for a female, it's really hard to compete with a male PT or even a male group X instructor because the main client is female. So if that female client is looking at like a good looking male PT, for example, they're going to choose that male PT over the female PT because they fancy them, or the fact that they think that they're more knowledgeable, or the fact that they are better represented in the industry. That's not the case. And it's trying to break down those barriers that actually that female PTs can be even more knowledgeable than the male counterparts, and even in group fitness we can still be really, really good at our jobs despite being female. And also, like Emma said, on the disability front, I like to see myself as a role model because I have a disability and I am doing a job that no one ever thinks a disabled person would ever do in their wildest dreams. And I think it's really important that disabled people actually follow their dreams and get a job or have a career in an industry that they so wish to do so, not because someone said you can't do that, because a lot of people will follow that advice and not do it, but actually they should actually follow their own gut instinct and actually follow their own dreams. So I was told that I could never teach a group fitness class, and 7.5 years on, I'm still teaching. And before pre-COVID, I was teaching 15 classes a week, and that goes to show that it actually can be done. And I'm hoping that I am a good role model for any female disabled person out there to showcase that actually, if you have a vision, you can go and achieve it, even if it is getting up and walking to the front door and back, because that to me shows that they've taken that inspiration and done something about it to help improve themselves.
Yeah, and I think that we work a lot within the charity about being able to become self-advocates and being able to advocate for yourself and giving people the skills to ask for what they need and to know for what they need. And Sam is fantastic because one of the messages that we want to drive home for adults with cerebral palsy is the importance of staying active. And historically, people with cerebral palsy have always been encouraged to rest and to take things easy and not do too much and preserve their skills. But actually, we know that by doing strength training and by staying active, we can keep and maintain our skills and maintain our mobility for a lot longer. And what's fantastic is that even though I'm backed up with lots of research and talking to lots of medics and lots of researchers who've proved this, we still have people who have the belief that they shouldn't be moving and shouldn't be exercising, which is really understandable because that's what they've been told since they were little. But then I present Sam and I say, look, Sam's doing it, or Sam presents herself and says, actually, no, you can get fit, and actually it will help your pain and it will help your mobility and it will help your mental health. And these are all the brilliant benefits. Why don't you just give it a go? And I think having Sam in the industry is fantastic. Because when someone sees somebody else doing it who is a bit more like them, they're more encouraged to do it. And I think that to date, there hasn't been enough people in the public eye or in those kind of industries where people could look up to. If they were anything like me, I was like, no, I can't do a group class. And anytime I ever tried to do a group class, the teacher would say, oh, you stand to the side and I'll have to come and talk to you separately. And that makes you not want to be. The reason that you do group exercise, I think, is to be part of the team and the camaraderie. But once you present with a disability, you're not part of that team, you're not part of that group. So Sam standing up in the front of the class and saying, I'm doing it and you can do it too, is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Following on from that, Emma, I've worked with several brands in the group exercise brands in the fitness industry to try and educate all the able-bodied instructors not to be scared of disabled participants. And I say to them, if you had someone with back pain walk to the class, you wouldn't get scared and run away, but they do with a disabled person. But it's exactly the same questions they need to ask to ascertain the right information to work with them. And it's just getting that message across to not be scared, to not, if you are scared, just grow some balls and get on with it, basically, because at the end of the day, that disabled clients can be a client for life, because disabled people are more loyal, I find, than able-bodied clients. So actually, if you can get a disabled client on board, you've got them for life, virtually.
That's because they need it, isn't it?
It is.
Oh, we've had a suggestion from Benny saying, please comment. So if anybody has any comments that they'd like to put in the Facebook or YouTube chat, please do, and we can, or any questions. That's always good. But yeah, I think I think you're absolutely right. I think the instructors are frightened of disability, and I'm absolutely with you, Sam. I know that I have gone back to gym. I've gone back to gyms where I felt really kind of empowered, not the one being like, oh, you can be over here and you can do this, and things like I do kickboxing or did do kickboxing for a long time, and I was never made to feel like I was like getting me is like, occasionally you get the odd person who was partnered with you who was like, oh no, I'm with the disabled person, which means I can't punch as hard, and then I punch them, I do the punching and they'd be like, oh okay, it's fine. But it's like, yeah, the people that were most supportive of you when you do exercise and when you do things, you have such a sense of loyalty towards that.
But I actually do powerlifting and I lift weights, and people go, oh, you can't lift anything, and then I show them what I can lift, and they're like, whoa. And it's that perception that they have without actually ever asking or without seeing what you can do. And that's the important thing. It's knowing what you can do within your own boundaries, and knowing that the clients should listen to their own bodies and only work to their own level, not to the instructor's level as well.
I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do, working with Sam and working within the charity, is helping people to own their own bodies and saying, and understand what signals and what things your body is telling you, and responding to that. So understanding what you need to do when you've got pain and what type of pain it is. So, does that mean I need to go and stretch, or I need to go and do some exercise, or does that mean I need to take a rest? And do I need to seek help, or is this just part of my condition, or is there something else going on that I need to investigate? And once you, I know that I'm quite renowned for saying own it, but once you own your disability and you own who you are, I think then the world's your oyster. You can have a go at everything, and you lose your inhibition because it's about you. And if you were saying to your younger sibling to get on, you would give them that advice. So why don't treat yourself in the same way, with the same respect?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I love that you're both so empowering and going like, own it. It's such an important thing, because it's that thing of, and I'm going to speak from personal experience again, it's that thing of that moment where I suddenly went, I was sort of going to a doctor's appointment and I had to bring my mum in with me, because I'm like, I don't know this, I don't know what I hadn't been to the doctors about my CV for a few years, and I was like, I'm going to have to be the person who brings their mum in, not because they're needed, but because she was needed, but it was just because it was like, she knows the answers to what I've had. And it was suddenly going, so it encourages you to go out and educate yourself about yourself, because otherwise it's like, I have no idea I don't have no idea what I'm talking about myself.
Yeah. I think with that as well, I think if you know who you are, you can actually manage your own disability better, and ongoing condition management. You can actually manage your pain better, manage knowing your limits of what you can and can't do better, and overall your health will be better too. And hopefully it's just about educating people on understanding their own body, and like we said earlier, just listen to it, and like knowing the pain, if that's your pain, or if it's like an ache, or if you do need to have like a down day and do absolutely nothing, because we all need them, disability or not, we all need like a duvet day. And it's just recognizing that the actual signals your body's telling you as well.
Yeah.
Do you also not think, Sam, though, if you walk into a place, regardless of it is around health, but if you learn to own your own body and you are less apologetic, I don't know about you, but I spent a lot of my early years apologizing for the fact that I walked slightly slower, or it took me a longer time, and I didn't know my own value, that actually then you can go and you can achieve a lot more, and also that the people around you, because you're owning it and you're comfortable with it, then they become comfortable, and then you sort of break down some of these barriers around disability because you're so comfortable that people can ask. I often talk about the time when I lived in Australia, which is completely different culturally than living in this country with a disability. And I'd walk into a pub and some strange person would ask me, well, what have you done? And why do you walk like that? And I looked at them aghast, like, how can you ask me that? It's so rude. And then I realized it was just a passing comment. They were interested for as much as they were interested, and then the conversation would move on. And the more free that I was with it, it became a less of an issue. And then when I was living there, there was a much more, well, if you've got a problem, let's work around it. Okay, you can't go walk up the mountain, but you can walk halfway up the mountain, and here's the keys to the truck, and you can go and have a rest while we all trudge to the top, and we'll all celebrate together when we get down to the bottom, rather than, well, you can't join in and you're not part of our group. It was a very different culture, and bringing it back into this country, it made me feel more confident about who I was, and then everybody around you is much more confident about it, and I think then that helps in terms of the things that you want to achieve. I feel like I'm on my soapbox. I don't mean
no. We love it here when people get on their soapbox and go, I have a thing that I need to talk about. It's so good when people have things that they are passionate about. So it's kind of so important.
I agree, because I've had clients. I work on my exercise referral scheme, and I've had older clients. When they come comfortable with working with me, they will just go, "Oh, what have you got?" And I just answer because I'm so confident within myself, and I obviously use that I don't mind talking to them. And also when I work with, I teach Simba in special schools in my town, and the kids will just come up to me going, "Why do you walk funny? Why do you do that? Why do you do this?" And I'm so honest with them, but I rather people be honest and ask than not ask, because sometimes when they don't ask, they can come across as being sort of ignorant or quite rude because they don't know how to speak to you. But actually, they just need to speak to you like anyone else, because we're all human, we all have our own feelings. And I think if they just asked us, if they asked us more, I think it'll make society a much better and easier place to live as a disabled person.
Yeah, I think. I think it's also that thing of each individual. I always go by the thing of each individual is their own expert on their own disability and how it affects them and how they need to. Because we've all got cerebral palsy here, but it's like we've all got very different kind of things that we need to do. But it's that thing of, I've had people come up to me and go, "Kate, we've done this and this and this and this and this and this for you," and I'm going, "That's great. I don't actually need any of that. What I do need is this." And they're like, "Oh," and I feel like that's such a problem, because it's like you feel like going, if you just asked me, I would have saved you a lot of work. It's actually easier to just ask, because I've saved you an awful lot of work and you put a lot of stuff in place that I don't need. So it's just, yeah.
And I think it's also that viewpoint of, you've got a lot of people take the medical view of disability, not the social view of disability. And I think if more people take the social view of disability, it's more about the client-centered role and putting that individual person at the forefront and actually listening to them, taking their needs on board and working with that one person to what they need. Whereas I feel the medical need is just a general baseline, and they work, and I think everyone's just got the same, they are the same regardless of disability. Whereas here, all our CP will affect us in 3 completely different ways, and that's the same with the whole CP population, that there's not one person with CP that have it exactly the same as another person. And sometimes I think the medical viewpoint don't take that on board.
No,
and I also think they use that as an excuse for why they don't. So this is my other little bit of a hobby horse, but that's what the charity's based on. It is trying to fight for better understanding of cerebral palsy as a condition for adults, and therefore better services to support adults with cerebral palsy, both in the medical world and, as Sam mentioned, in terms of the third sector and what's around for them. But often what's been used as an excuse is, well, cerebral palsy is so different and it affects everybody in so many different ways that we can't possibly have services because everybody's got different needs. And what we're saying is, yes, everyone's got different needs. They've got to understand themselves. You've got to understand your body. But as a condition, we don't want to go to the polio service, or because it's a bit like polio, or the MS service because it's a bit like MS. We want to go to a service that understands cerebral palsy and all of its complexities. So I think that what it's also because as we understand it, it's also different. It's also been used as an excuse as to why our population hasn't been served properly, and I don't think that we should give them that excuse anymore.
And also, like for me, I was signed up at 16, and I've not been seen by anyone since I was 16 unless I asked for physio, and I think that is really bad. CP say the forgotten neurological condition. And a lot of people don't realise it is an actual neurological condition. And you've got loads out there for MS, loads out there for Parkinson's, loads out there for like acquired brain injuries. But where's the stuff for CP? And it is not out there. And you really need to go out and educate everyone that actually CP is a condition. And as we get older, the effects of CP on our body, especially our skeleton, are going to get worse. Which is why we need to move to actually combat all the aging conditions. Yet the medical world don't really see that. They just want to forget, like, put us in the corner and completely forget about us, and that's really wrong.
Yeah, it almost feels like, in the nicest part, sorry to be quite crass about it, it's almost like, well, you've done growing, so there's nothing else we can do for you, which doesn't really work.
I think also it was because CP was understood, and it still is, as a non-progressive condition, as in that the site of your brain injury doesn't change, and therefore how CP affects you doesn't change. It doesn't at its core, but if you've lived with a body that does things slightly different than the way it was designed over a long period of time, it's going to have a detrimental effect on your body and on your skeleton, and on your cardiovascular system, and on, osteoporosis and all of those other things that now, because we understand that, we can say to people like the policymakers or the medics that actually we now understand that all adults with cerebral palsy in the main have the same life expectancy than anybody else. And we know that their condition can change over time. So we need services to support that. But the reason that we need services to support that is that we can support adults to carry on living the life that they want to lead and live their best life, and not struggle with problems with orthopedic conditions and vascular conditions and all these other things that they don't need to be suffering from if they had regular support and supervision and regular reviews. And if I can give a shameful plug for our Stamp Out the Gap campaign, it's probably a good time to do that, because we're saying that we don't want adults with cerebral palsy to be treated like second-class citizens anymore, that we want cerebral palsy recognised as a lifelong condition, the same way as MS and Parkinson's is considered a condition with clear care pathways and clear services. We want the same for adults with cerebral palsy, and we want to stamp out the gap in that inequality that exists. And so we launched a campaign for Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, which we're taking right the way through till October. And what we hope to do is to present that petition to the Department of Health and to the government. And actually what we're trying to do is we're going to present the petition as the smallest petition in the world, because we're going to write it on the back of a postage stamp. And what we're asking for is parity of care, or care parity with other conditions. It's a really simple ask. We're really lucky that NICE, which is the National Institute of Clinical Excellence, who bring out guidance about how we treat different conditions, have brought out a set of guidance of how we should treat adults with cerebral palsy. But actually, there's nobody telling the NHS they need to roll these services out. And we're saying, actually, it's there, the guidance is there, now just do it. And it's not going to cost you any extra money, because if you keep people in work, if you keep people participating, then they're not a drain on the NHS. They're not using resources. You're keeping them fit and healthy so they can carry on working and they can carry on living their best life. So that's why we launched Stamp Out the Gap.
Oh, I believe I believe
Yeah.
Is Miriam Hayes known to you, Emma?
Yeah, Miriam runs the charity with me.
I was going to say, so that's definitely the correct ULR. So if people want to go that, and we'll also make sure it goes into it will be in the comments of the Facebook video. So please do go and check that out and sign the petition.
Thank you very much. We often get people saying that we really believe in the work that you do. What can you do to help? And this is a really simple ask. Go and sign the petition and share it with all your friends and family and tell them that it's not good enough and it needs to change. And that's a really simple thing to do.
And also, I think following on from Emma is also educating a lot of parents with children with CP about adult CP help, because they don't realise they get all the care in the world for their child, but what they don't realise is that care will stop at 16 or 18, depending on the area, and the fact that they need to get on board with adult CP help, so that when their kids grow up to be adults, they're going to get the care and support that they need. And I think a lot of parents don't actually realise this, and they think they're going to have that care right up till they die, and they're not. And and their child could miss out. But the more they get behind the actual campaign, the more education is going to be out there for more parents in future years about children with CP.
Thank you, Sam. Couldn't put it better myself.
It's true. I think that very much is. I'm not a parent of it, but I would imagine that's genuinely how a lot of. I used to work for a charity that dealt specifically with children with cerebral palsy. Unsurprisingly, they did have an adult section, but it was quite small. But basically, all the effort went into and you speak to them. And I genuinely have this opinion that they probably all think it's going to go forever, because I'm talking to them at the point of diagnosis. So it's like at the point of diagnosis, it's like, oh, get all this help. And once you've got, and the fact that I know that might be quite upsetting for some parents, because I know that they feel that they've had to fight so hard to get the support that they've already got. Yeah, the fight ends at 16 or 18 at the moment, because there is nothing else.
I'm 41, and my mum had to fight for me back in 1983 or 1982, 83 to get all the help back then, and it's still not changed. And I think that goes to show how lack of information there is on CP out there. And the fact is that some of the operations that they give the younger kids now has changed, but actually the long-term care hasn't changed at all. And I wasn't told about what could happen with my CP as I get older. I was just told that it's non-progressive. And I still think parents are still told that. They're not told that when you hit your early 30s, your body's going to start changing, you're going to feel it more. I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis at 26 because of my CP. And I don't think they realise that all these conditions can happen a lot sooner than for a non-disabled person, and that needs a lot more education as well.
And I think and that is definitely one of the aims of the charity, is to get that education, to actually to understand what things can happen for adults and to educate people about it. But in terms of changing it into something that's positive, actually the message also that we want to give to parents is, yes, things can change, but yes, you can do something about it. You can help your children to form a love of sport and love of activity. You can keep them active from an early age. And as a family, you can adopt that active lifestyle that you know that's going to help your child as they get older. And okay, there might not be the physio services and the OT services there yet, and we will carry on campaigning for that. But actually, there are other things that you can do, like getting your child into horse riding, for example, or getting them into swimming, because those are the sorts of activities that they're going to see them through for the rest of their life. And unfortunately, at the Hub, we often meet people who, like Sam, weren't told about what could happen to them and ask us questions. If I'd have known then what I know now, I would have done things a lot differently. Because I don't know about you, but when I was discharged at 16 and told I didn't have to go back to a physio again, I was like, woohoo, I don't have to see a physio. I hate physio. Now, physios are my best friend, and I would long to see a physio, and I do celebrate every physio session I ever get. But as a child and as an adolescent, that's not what I wanted to know, and that's not what I wanted to hear. But actually, if we educate adolescents and the young that actually it's really important to stay fit and help them to access the gyms or classes like Sam's, then actually they get a passion for exercise and movement. And lots of the young adolescent people with CP that we meet don't think about themselves as, well, I need to exercise because I've got CP. They say, I need to exercise because I'm an athlete, or I need to exercise because I want to do what my friends are doing. But actually, that's going to keep them fit and healthy in the long term. So I think there's lots of positive messages that we can give to parents and to families about what they can do to help themselves, and start that message really young.
That reminds me, sorry, I was just going to ask Sam a question of that. That leads on to a question about, you obviously talk about what you're going to talk about, but obviously Movement is Medicine challenge, Sam, that you're doing currently.
I am. So so obviously, I mean, like Emma, we're in a lot of groups for cerebral palsy, adults and children, and one of the biggest questions that I ever see is the fact that people are in pain and they don't realise, and the people that are in a lot of pain are the ones that aren't moving enough. And though you can shout about it across the rooftops, they don't know where to start. So, and sometimes like a class is not right for everyone. I know that. And obviously, group fitness classes are great for the social element and those that can adapt themselves. But then I did the challenge to educate people that even a minute of exercise a day is all they need to get them moving. And a lot of my challenges that I've had every day have been 1 minute, and it's as simple as that. And it doesn't take a lot to do a minute of exercise. So, and that just gets them moving in a completely different way to what they think. Because I think a lot of people think that they're going to have to go for like a 5-mile run. And it's not about that at all. It's about moving the body in different ways, moving it across all planes of movement, because a lot of disabled people stay in one plane of movement, and it's really important that we move across different planes of movement to keep our bodies fit as they can be, and so that we don't stay in one position all the time. Because if we stay in one position all the time, our bodies are going to be fixed in that one position, and that's no good for anyone. And so that's why I created it. So far it's been really popular. I've got lots of good feedback, and I think because it is really small snippets, it also gives them a little like taster of what they could expect in a PT session, because obviously a PT session is completely different to classes, and I don't think a lot of disabled people realise that. And my PT sessions are very personalised to the person I'm working with, and not one of my PT sessions is the same. Everyone's different, every client's different, they've all got different needs. I've got able-bodied clients, disabled clients with any condition, and it's just educating them that it's all about moving. And the more we move, the less pain we're going to get, the less medication we need to take in the long run, which actually helps the NHS in the long run, because we're providing less strain on the NHS. And also, as we get older, it is going to help us stay mobile for longer, especially those that, say me and Emma, that are quite ambulant and we can walk. It means that we can actually walk for longer, so we're not going to end up in a wheelchair earlier than we should do. And I've seen that time and time again, where people don't actually move, they don't actually they can't like think, oh, they think, oh, I'm getting old, getting older, I can't move, I need to go in a wheelchair. They don't think about what they could do to actually get themselves back walking again. And I think that's really important, because for me, I wouldn't want to go in the wheelchair. I know it sounds awful, but because I've been ambulance all my life, personally, I want to stay that way for as long as I possibly can, and sort of fight it when I do have to go into a wheelchair. And I think that's how a lot of disabled people need to be in their own thought process, if that makes sense.
I think what you're saying, Sam, is about beliefs as well. So it's all right. It's all very well knowing that you've got to do something, but you've also got to believe that you're capable of it. And what's fantastic about your challenges is by starting slowly, you're building up somebody's belief that they can see themselves as an active person. And it's about identity, isn't it? Because for so long, you've thought of yourself as somebody who doesn't move very much, who isn't into sport, that doesn't like sport or doesn't like activity and can't do it. And it's about slowly building up their belief about themselves, and about what they can and what they can't do. And also at the time in which a wheelchair is important, then you know that you can use a wheelchair for some things, but you can also walk around for other things. I know I was kind of forced into a chair after surgeries where I didn't have another choice, but actually it opened my eyes. It said to me, wow, all those times that I sat on the bench while everyone else went and had a really nice time and I said, I'll catch up with you later, I missed out on a whole load of things. But if I go in a chair, then I can be part of that and I can join in. So I think it's about also educating people about their body. So we know a great fitness instructor who actually is himself a wheelchair user some of the time, and he uses his wheelchair to get around the gym. And then he goes and trains someone, and he says that he uses his wheelchair because it conserves his energy, so that when he wants to be walking around and doing things, he's still got the energy to do that. So I think it's also about, if you're fit and active, then you can make those conscious decisions about yourself. It's not about, now I need to go into a chair. It's now I'm making a choice that I can use a chair to help myself when I want to, or a walking aid, because it helps me. And it gives you more ownership. And you don't feel so much like you're being put upon, but that you're part of the decision-making process. And I think that's really important.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Jamie, Benny, if you're listening, then we're going to do this in a second. Jamie, friend of the show, says cycling helps me. We know this. He was on a few weeks ago and he talked about how he's done a massive challenge going around like 500 miles, and I can't remember your challenge, Jamie. I'm so sorry. But it was a very, very impressive challenge. So with that in mind, as Jamie has commented, we're going to play Jamie's gaming now. So you might want to know what this is. Jamie is a friend of the show. And he uses an AAC to communicate. So basically, he uses lots of different symbols, and then his computer will speak for him. The question there is, what does the game here is getting you two to guess, and you can work together on this. I'm not saying you can't, because I don't know the answer either. What does this mean?
Goodness, as a speech therapist, I'm going to get this wrong.
I know I'm going to get it wrong as well. To me, the arrow, I think, is like movement, like you're going somewhere.
Go and get my shoes. To go.
Shoes. Something.
To get something like looks like it's to get active. I don't.
To go out. Need to put my shoes on. Can you help me put my shoes on to go out?
My question is, what's the little arrows at the start? Going,
Push spring. Should it be spring forward? If you've got like the arrow that is like curved, could that be like a?
I know you two can't see this, but Benny is giggling very much. He's going, no, this is not what. That's not what this means. I'm like, okay, there's something to do with shoes, Benny. We got that. And sorry,
do exercise and moving.
Or maybe that's a complete false.
I think, Benny, we need the answer, please. Do the shoes go with my wheelchair? That.
I've
Wow,
never got that.
That's a sentence. Yay. Thank you for that one, Benny. Yes. Do the shoes go with my wheelchair? Tim, to promote yourself. Time to promote yourself now. What would you like to promote? I mean, obviously, we're going to talk about Adult CP Hub and InclusiveFit, but tell us, how can we get involved?
Can I go first?
Yes, certainly, go
Of
first.
course. Yeah.
So I run InclusiveFit. So I run classes online at the moment, and when I go back, they'll be hybrid. So when I go back to face to face, they'll also be streamed online. So thank you, Benny. And then link. So I have my Facebook page, which is on the screen now. I also have a website, which is just www.inclusivefit.co.uk, and I also have a YouTube channel.
Just for anybody listening later without the visual, InclusiveFit is spelled INCLUSFIT. It's
a anagram of inclusive, basically. So if you take the word inclusive, take the IVE off and just put fit, you got my business name, basically. And so I do classes and I offer personal training. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, you can I'm fully insured for I got worldwide cover. So it doesn't matter where you are, I can actually PT you on Zoom. I do classes on Zoom. So just hook me up and I can talk about your own needs, your own sort of personal issues you might want to work on. But also I have a YouTube channel where I've actually put all my free stuff on. So I've got free workouts on there. All my challenges are put on there so that they can be done time and time again, month after month if they did want to repeat them. And I'm always around for people to give advice to as well on getting active or starting to get active. And if there's I've also encouraged quite a lot of people with disabilities to train to work in the fitness industry. So if there was someone out there that did want to do what I do, please feel free to contact me. So I'm happy to talk through all the qualifications and everything that's needed to actually work within the industry.
Great, thank you, Sam. Emma.
I guess what I'd say is that to go to our website, www.adultcphub.org, and have a look at the information, the advice, and all the resources that we have on there. And what we're asking for is your voice, really, to join our campaign. If you believe that adults with cerebral palsy need better, then get involved with the charity. We're always looking for people with skills and thoughts about how we can best get our message across. What's most important for us at the moment is that we get those 100,000 signatures. So please share the petition and join us in that campaign. And I think that we've got our link to the Golden Giving at the bottom. Obviously, as a charity, we rely on people's donations and support in order that we continue to do the work that we do. But most importantly, we're going to get change if we get a loud community voice. And when I mean a community voice, both from those people who have cerebral palsy themselves, from their carers, from their families, from their medical professionals, from their social workers, from anybody involved with cerebral palsy. If you think that adults with cerebral palsy deserve better, then you could be part of our campaign. And we know that with a loud voice, we're more likely to get the changes that we deserve.
That's great. Thank you very much, both of you. Now, one final question that is very, very important. It's my very, very exciting, journalistically deep question just to end on, because we've done our promotion. We normally do this before promotion, but so deep and so journalistically important and so much important for everything we discussed. What's your favourite biscuit? If you eat a biscuit.
I got a couple.
You're allowed a couple. I'm not like.
I don't know the name of them. They like biscuit with chocolate covered in the top half, not digestive. They're like I can't remember what they're called. That one of those. But I also like hobnobs. No, like they're like rectangle shape, and they have like 3/4 of them covered with chocolate, and they.
Oh yes, I want to say Fox's biscuits of some description, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like they're dipped, sort of.
Yeah. And I also like chocolate bonbons. They call it bourbons. I like
Bourbons.
as well.
Ah, you see that. That's good. And Emma, what about you?
So if I'm allowed to have three, the first
Oh.
chocolate the biscuit that came to my mind was a bourbon biscuit. That was my ultimate favourite. But my daughter is a brilliant chef, and at the moment she's doing some really great cookies. And if I didn't say that they were my favourite, I'd probably be disowned as a mummy. And if I'm allowed to have a Kit Kat Chunky, I'm not sure if that is a biscuit or a chocolate bar, but it has got biscuit in it.
I'll let a Kit Kat Chunky slide. I wouldn't let like a dairy milk slide. I'll let Kit Kat Chunky slide.
That is my ultimate treat. So there we go.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, both. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for joining this. I hope you found it useful and you've enjoyed yourselves. And thank you so much for joining us. Just a reminder to everyone that the links for both Inclusive Fit and Adult CP Hub are available in the comment section of the Facebook thing, and as well as YouTube. So I just want to say thank you very much to Emma, thank you very much to Sam, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much. Benny, are we ready to go? Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all we have time for tonight from Benny and the gang. Please remember to subscribe and click on the bell for more notifications on the next instalment of Benny Shakes Things Up. If you want to support the podcast, or you like the jingle from Leicester in Nottingham, please click on the links below. Adios, amigos.